like, I hacked together this thing and Chelsea made it pink, and
Yeah.
Xavier's like, oh look, here's 5 projects that I've made. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I got through a lot that weekend.
Hi, I'm Andrew Harvey. I'm here talking to Xavier Shay about RubyConf and about his talk there. And we're doing this in conjunction with Multifaceted.io and Ninefold. Thanks so much, Xavier, for taking some time out of your day to chat with us.
My pleasure.
Now, Xavier, quite excited about RubyConf. It is bearing down on us quickly. And we're going to chat about that in a second. But wanted to start off with a little bit about you, I suppose, as a developer.
Yep.
And specifically with reference to Ruby, what was it that brought you to Ruby as a programming language, and maybe even as a community?
Yeah, let me think. So I think my very first experience with Ruby, actually, I was building a web store in Java struts or something like that. I can't really remember. This is when I was at school. I was just screwing around, and what I found with the Java world is like it was a very intellectually challenging thing. Like, you know, figuring out, okay, what are all the right interfaces and how do all the bits click together? But what I must have stumbled across Rails or something, because I tried doing what had been doing in Java and Rails, and I basically sort of just did it, and then I was kind of done. I was like, what do I do now? Like, I literally just ran out of stuff to do because I just got up to par with what Java was. I was like, okay, well that's kind of handy. So I was sort of playing around with Ruby a little bit, and then after school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and ended up getting an email from Redbubble. They're an Australian, well, they were based in Melbourne at the time, although they still are, startup saying, hey, we're doing some Ruby stuff, saw your blog posts, do you want a job, basically? And I thought, okay, well, this looks kind of fun, and that sucked me in. And ever since then, I sort of, from there, you know, started getting involved in the community and started learning more about it, and then, yeah, it just sort of all happened, I guess.
That's very cool. And I suppose a little bit more about Ruby. What is it about the language that kind of excites you?
I think it's honestly just a lot of little things. Like I do a lot of I do a lot of Haskell, and you know, I play around with other languages all the time. Well, one of the things that I really like about Ruby, and actually this probably applies to any scripting language actually, but the fact that you know, the other day I was screwing around with one of my apps, and it turned out there's a problem down in Rails, and you sort of trace it all down. And the thing is, you can actually just crack open the source code on your computer, change it, run it, and see what happened. And then if that fixes it, you send a patch to GitHub, you point bundler at it, and it all just works. Like, and sometimes you don't always want to do that, but I can get my job done, right? And when it comes down to it, you can have whatever language features you want in the world, but for me, I can get stuff done really quickly and really effectively with Ruby. Because when it comes down to it, technology and programming languages, they're all a means to an end, right? Like, you're trying to, you know, make somebody's life better, or make your life better, or you know, you're trying to create something for somebody else, or make the world better in some way. And when it comes down to it, like, that's what I want to do, right? And Ruby has the community, the libraries, you know, honestly, I know it really well. That's actually a big part of it. And just, it has this really good combination that I feel like I can do that, you know, and I can get this stuff done and then move on to something else.
Yeah, really cool. So moving a little bit more towards RubyConf.
Yep.
So you're talking about some stuff which is kind of quite, I suppose, close to the bone in some places, talking about performance in Ruby.
Yeah.
But what was it that inspired this talk in particular?
I thought it was a good story. No, I look around. So whenever I pitch a talk, I think, okay, well, what do I want to see more of in the community? And then how can I try and enact that change, right? And one thing I want to see more of is I see a lot of, and I actually personally felt a lot of, like, oh, it's like somebody else's problem, right? It's like, oh, something's slow, but it's in RubyGem, so that's too hard, right? Or it's a bundler problem, and that's too hard. Or Rails startup time takes 20 seconds, but that's too hard a problem for me, right? And what I was thinking is like, well, actually, when it comes down to it, like it's all kind of just code, and the other part of that actually is you think of it as like, okay, well, it's Rails and or it's RSpec, and it's a mature project, it's been around for a while. Like I'm sure that I wouldn't be able to find any performance improvements, right? It's like all this negative self-talk, right? Whereas what I found, and this is true in pretty much every library I've ever looked at, is there is always low-hanging performance fruit, right? Because especially for the type of projects that we work on, like it's just not a priority for a lot of people. And so, for instance, I just started looking at why my Rails app was starting up slowly, just because, like, I hate waiting for stuff. And I just tracing it down, and at the end I found it's like, well, actually, Ruby itself is using a slow algorithm, and that was kind of scary because Ruby's written in C, and I don't really know C very well, but when it comes down to it, it's like it's just a computer doing the things you tell it to do, and it's C code. Like you can still kind of figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like it's still just a programming language, and I know how to program, so I can just might take me a while, but I can sit down and read it and comment things out and add some debugging, diagnostic stuff, and I can figure out what's going on. And so I kind of just want to get that mindset across, and that's actually a lot of what my talk's about. It's like this is a thing that you can do, like, and it's not hard, it's not a black art, or maybe at one end of the spectrum it is, but there's sort of the 80% stuff. Like it's just sitting there waiting for people to just look and find obvious problems. And that's been my experience. Whenever anything is like obscenely slow, there's usually an obvious reason.
Yeah.
And so I sort of just want to try and communicate that and get this idea that, hey, if something's slow, like take 10 minutes and look at it, and maybe you'll actually just find it. Which is always kind of shocking the first time that happens, You're just like, well, maybe if I just look, and then, oh my god, it's there. That actually comes back to my original thing I was saying about programming being like a video game. That's just another example, right? Where you look and then you get a reward, and you're like, oh, that was fun.
So following on from that, and you've already kind of delved in here, but maybe kind of some specific things. What is it like when you finish your talk and someone leaves? What is it that you want them to take with them?
I want them to be able to go back to their job or their project the very next day and like be able to solve a problem that they had. So other talks I've given in the past have primarily been about here's how I build Rails applications, because I've been doing Rails for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now or something like that. It's a while, and I've built and been a part of a lot of big applications, and I've seen things work, and I've seen problems reoccur, like the same problems on every project, which isn't actually surprising because if you have a framework, it's going to have a set of problems, and everybody's probably going to hit the same problems. And so what my talks have been in the past, I think I gave one, I can't even remember where I gave them, but I gave one about, I think it was called Sustainable Productivity with Rails. It's like, okay, after having done this a couple of times, here is now what I do, and this is what you can apply on your project, and it will make your project better. It will be easier to work on, it will be easier to extend, and it won't cost you a lot up front. And so it's like, it's easy wins. That's what it is, right? There's a lot of talks that inspire people. They're like, oh, here's a really technical topic that you're going to have to go home and read about and study. And I don't really give that talk. I don't think I'm particularly good at it. My talks tend to be, hey, here's some easy stuff that you can probably do, and you can do it tomorrow, and it will make your life better. That's what my talks tend to be about.
Cool. Now, speaking of talks and more broadly of RubyConf, have you had a chance to look at the conference schedule and maybe pick out some talks that you're really keen to see?
No. So kind of deliberately, I really like to just sort of rock up and play it by ear. I'm not the sort of person who will like go through a schedule and say, okay, well, I have to see that, I have to see that, I have to see that, and come with a plan. That's not really how I roll. So I tend to just show up day one and go from there. I'm actually not even sure what day I'm speaking at the moment. I probably should figure that out.
So long as you turn up to your talk, it's all right.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to be there, so I'm sure it'll work out. Yeah, I'm also just excited. Like, I know there's a lot of people. Like, I work, like I'm working on RSpec and I'm working on Bundler, and I know all those guys are going to be there. So I'm actually pretty excited just to be able to catch up with a lot of these guys in person. And we've got a couple of issues like that would be really nice to just get in a group and talk about. And so I'm actually really looking forward to that aspect as well. Like that's the community aspect, I guess.
Awesome. Awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, I gotta run.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
And I'll see you in Miami.
I'll see you next week, I guess.
Yeah.
Sweet. See you, mate.